I used to find the words miscarriage of justice inadequate to describe the horror of wrongful conviction. The phrase implied to me an accident, and wrongful convictions can never be written off as accidental. Later, however, I realised that the description, of course, meant death, and that's exactly right, a total death of justice. For the victim, what does this mean? What does it feel like hour by hour, day by day? None of us know who have not had it happen to us. It's like being buried alive. It is to feel day by day that you are a dead man walking. And how does that fit day in and day out with the reality of being alive? Conscripted into a regime demanding total obedience with the most petty and cruel of rules inflicted upon you by jailers, wielding absolute power over you. How does any human being deal with finding himself alive but dead to the world, where he is intended to remain possibly for the rest of his life? Michael O'Brien was trapped underneath the rubble of an entirely false accusation, which will remain buried to this day. We are talking about Michael O'Brien. Hello and welcome to Crime Writers, just one of our brand new short, unique entertainment programmes here on Legal TV. I'm Rachel Harvey-Jones, and in the studio with me today is fellow Welsh person Michael O'Brien. Michael was wrongly jailed for 11 years for the murder of a Cardiff newsagent, and his experience has led him to write his personal account of the events in Guilty Until Proven Innocent. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
All I can say is, they say the Welsh are tough, but I mean, this story is absolutely incredible.
It's very unique because there's a number of aggravating features which happened to me when I was in prison. You know, for instance, like, you know, I didn't have to just deal with being wrongly accused. I had to deal with the death of my daughter before the trial. You know, my stepfather died when I was in prison, and then basically my wife walking out on me for a friend of mine. So, you know, I was only 19 at the time. It's very extraordinary to manage to survive that alone, let alone, you know, the 11 years I'd done on top. Yes.
On reading your account, for the first sort of 100 pages, I was really struggling to find any evidence against you. I mean, it just seems like there was, I mean, you describe it in your book as a dragnet. They just found all these people and thought, right, let's question them and let's see what they did on that night. I mean, is that very much how it felt to you at the time?
Yes, it did. You know, bearing in mind my two co-accused did have criminal records, so what, you know, because they were doing the dragnet with anybody with a criminal records, that's...
You had no previous conviction?
No, I had no previous conviction, but I'm not saying I was an angel either, like, you know.
A Cardiff boy, no, I don't doubt that for a minute.
You know, definitely, like, I agree with that. But, I've never hidden that at all, like, you know, in the police interviews, I never sort of detracted from the fact that we were out to no good on the night in question, but we were nowhere near the murder at the time it happened, and we didn't know nothing about it. We genuinely didn't know anything about it.
I mean, stealing a car and brutally murdering someone are quite different crimes, aren't they?
I feel I got a life sentence for stealing the car. It's like in America where you got the 3 strikes and you're out over a pizza, like, you know what I mean? You nick a pizza 3 times and you get a life sentence.
Yeah.
You know, it's even worse over here. I nicked the car and got a life sentence straight away. So that's the way I sort of perceive it.
Absolutely. I mean, you must have just 11 years in prison for something you didn't do. I mean, we now know that you spent that time studying the law and really throwing yourself into something very worthwhile. But I mean, to come out of this and think to yourself, right, now I'm going to put pen to paper, this is soon going to be published, which is very exciting. I mean, where do you get the strength to do that?
I'll be quite honest with you, the last 3 years, you know, and it took me to write the book was very difficult. I felt it would be good therapy for me to get everything out of my head, all the pain and suffering I've been through, and put it to paper. And whilst I was writing it, I used to get very, very angry because I could feel you know, the hurt when I'm writing the book.
Sort of reliving the moment.
I was reliving the moments, that's exactly, you know, and you start flashbacks and whatever. But after I wrote it and sat back and reread it again, I was like, that was a big relief, you know, that was part of the healing process.
Wow.
But one of the other inspirations is a number of innocent people still inside, you know, who need help. I understand that, and I believe there's about at least 5,000 people in the organisations I've worked for over the years who believe that that's how many people are innocent and in prison.
Wow.
And I'm just hoping that my book will, you know, help to inspire them. You know, I was in their position a couple of years ago, you know, to fight back, you know, because the innocent person has to fight back. You can't rely on your family, friends and campaigners. They can only do so much, but you've got to take control of it. And in my instance, I actually studied law, found out what went wrong with my case and started applying the law, saying, well, hang on, this isn't right. This is what the law is saying. Now I'd like you to rectify it, please. And so, you know, that... And the death of my daughter as well, like, you know, I don't want my daughter's death to be in vain because she died when I was in prison. I want this to be like... you know, in memory of her sort of thing, you know, the book itself, like, you know.
A celebration of her.
Yeah, a celebration of her short life, you know what I mean? Just, you know, she's not forgotten in this terrible tragedy of a miscarriage of justice.
What I loved about the book was the sheer honesty. I mean, once you've been sort of, you know, banged up for 11 years, you can't help but be honest about what's happened to you. But the sheer honesty when you describe your background, I'm very familiar with, you know, that area of Cardiff, you know, not too far away myself. You know, you didn't have much money and you didn't feel you fitted in, you know. And going out on that night to steal a car was your kind of way to get in with them. And you were a psychological mess, you know, when you sort of were accused of this crime. And I think what you've done here is absolutely incredible. How do you feel? How do you feel now? You told me something very interesting before the show, because you've received compensation.
Yeah.
Rightly so, I have to say. But tell our viewers the very interesting fact that the charges that were taken out of what you gave
Yes, I was deducted the kind pleasure of paying $37,500 for my food and water whilst I was in prison. They only deduct innocent people money. They don't charge the guilty people who've committed the crimes in the first place.
Incredible.
Well, I fought it all the way to the House of Lords. You know, I've had a couple of battles with the authorities, and it's not very often I'd lose. So I was a bit miffed to find out that whilst guilty people don't have to pay anything, people like myself do. I just think it adds insult to injury.
Well, I think we should definitely look at the legal system in this country and question that. So if you were guilty, you wouldn't have had to pay the $37,000.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We have a little ritual that we go through here, Michael, when we get esteemed writers in, which of course you are now, and you're in the process of writing another book, which I'm very excited about. We ask you to sign your book. I mean, this is not yet the finished published version, but it's very exciting. The publishing deal is hot off the press, so it will be published very soon. If you could sign it for us and pop it onto our rather crowded bookshelf. And I have to say, you're amongst some very famous authors there. So is this a new career for you now, do you think, writing?
Well, I do hope so. You know, I've got other books planned as well as the two.
If you could pop it on the shelf for us. That's perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I've got other things in the pipeline. But, you know, my initial thing, I do want to get into television and radio, which is what I've always wanted to do. You know, so, you know, if the book career takes off as well, and, you know, I'll be multitasking.
Yeah. Well, this could be the start of a very successful TV career. Michael, thank you so much for coming in and telling your story. It's very sad, very honest, but I've got lots of admiration for you, so thanks again for that.
Okay, thank you.
That's another book closed here on Crime Writers. Until next time, bye-bye for now.